Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, give us the light to know your will and the strength to get it done. Amen. Okay, first talk. Oh, the 4 talks. On the schedule, I did not put the list. I changed things for the first time in ever. I didn't give you the names of the talks or the name of the movie. The reason is because I'm a horrible person and I usually put a joke name. It's related. It's just a completely made up name that's sort of related. And then I found out people were actually maybe misunderstanding them, and I felt terrible. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to put the no names, and then just conference. I'll tell you what the 4 conferences are. No, I'm not going to tell you the movie because you have phones, so you'll be able to search it, and then it'll ruin the movie. Well, maybe I've seen it already. I don't care. Keep it to yourself. But I will say the movie tomorrow night, the idea is that we keep silence from now. Us and one of the other groups is silent, but the other 2 groups are not. I'm going to suggest to you try to keep your silence. That means you're going to be sitting with 5 other people because the tables are the same tables we used. Fast. If you just take one and pass it, there should be exactly enough, maybe one more. The idea about the film is to break the tension of the silence, right? But also then after the film, we can have a discussion. You are. First talk now is on the virtue of integrity versus duplicity. Integrity versus duplicity. I didn't put it there, I know, I did it on purpose. Because I can't control myself from writing something silly. So I just didn't write anything. This is true. The second talk will be on how you define yourself. How do you define yourself? If integrity is living according to your moral code and your personal code, and that's what it is, well, you have to know what you are and who you are to define your code. The third talk is explaining the 2 mountains. You'll get there when I get there. The 2 mountains, that's tomorrow afternoon. And the last talk, Sunday morning, is on virtue-based spiritual life. Maybe I'm gonna propose, not order, I can't. I'm gonna propose to you a way to reform your code. So if you choose to change your code, then you know how to live to it. We're gonna look at what integrity does, right? And then looking at how you define yourself to be a person of integrity. Then, the 2 mountains. And last but not least, I'm going to propose to you different things to make the top of your second mountain, if you want to call it that. You may be there, you may not. I'll explain it when we get there. Okay. Integrity versus duplicity. Okay, so what is integrity? Integrity comes from the Latin word for single or whole or complete. Okay? The idea, the Romans integers, we still have whole numbers or integers. Those of you who remember that when you learned it in school. Those are whole numbers, right? Not fractional numbers. Something that was integral, right? If you're Spanish, you might eat pan integral. Pan integral, I do speak Spanish, I was just messaging. Some of you are like, oh, he doesn't speak that? No, I do. Pan integral, right? That's whole bread, right? So, what does that mean? It's complete, it's whole. Something that was complete or whole is an wholeness, completeness, integrity is a mark of perfection. This is just from pure reason. I'm not saying a spiritual thing right now. Something that is perfectly pure and complete is, by definition, has some perfection to it. Do you get what I'm saying so far? This is why we tell little girls when they're struggling with their image, you look great just the way you are. We have to convince them that they are perfect as they are. You with me so far? Mm-hmm. If something is complete, then it's done. If it has fractures to it, then by definition, it is not perfect. It is lacking in perfection insofar as it is fractured. You with me? The Romans, the ancient Greeks and the Romans figured that out. So they said, so wait a minute, God, the gods, and then eventually when we all became monotheistic, God has to be perfect, has to be simple, complete, whole. You get me? By the way, that's one of the proofs for why there's not multiple gods. How could there be multiple gods? That means the power of divinity is divided. That means it's not God, because it's not perfect. You got me? Aristotle figured that out 300 years before Jesus. They killed him for it, but he did figure it out. And he said, well, wait, you can't. Socrates, forgive me. Aristotle was a student, his student's student. Socrates says, wait a minute, you can't have. Because if there's multiple gods, and what one God does, the other God doesn't, so that means that they're not all powerful. So that means divinity is divided, so that means they're not gods. There must be somebody above them. Eventually there has to be just one. You can figure out, you just reasoned with Socrates from multiple gods to one. It's not that hard if you just look at integrity, wholeness. If something is pure, then it has more perfection than something is impure. Okay, and this is just basic philosophy and the reason of the ancient man. The opposite of integrity, there's a lot of words. What's crazy about it is there's not even an English proper word for the opposite of integrity. Because it's so perfect that the opposite is imperfect, just not integrity, right? So it doesn't work. Disintegrated, right? We say that, but that's using the same word. You learn that in English when you define a word, you don't use the same word. Duplicity is probably the closest word from the ancient words that comes to us. Duplicity as the opposite of integrity. If integrity is one and whole, duplicity, duplos, is multiple or divided or two-faced. That's where we get the word from. The opposite of integrity is duplicity. Or multiplicity, that's worse. It's a decent movie. Michael Keaton could have done a better job, but it's worse if it's multiplicity. But duplicity is already imperfect, so therefore it's not perfect, so therefore that's enough. You get me? For opposites. The two words you might want to use is honesty for integrity and hypocrisy for duplicity. Those words work just fine too. Something that is duplicitous, or has duplicity, doubleness, duplos, literally means double. It presents different truths to different situations. Or we would say presents a different person to different people. A duplicitous person is a lying person. Duplicitous, by the way, is a very fancy word if you want to use fancy English for a liar. Or lieish. That salesman was a bit duplicitous. That's a really nice way of saying he's a filthy liar. It's a nice way of saying it, but that's what that means. I wasn't being duplicitous with you. I wasn't speaking to you in two ways. I was being frank with you. Maybe you didn't understand me, maybe I wasn't open all the way, but that's what it means. It means to be disintegrated or to be split. Okay? All of our choices, all of your choices form who you are. Jean-Paul Sartre was wrong in so many things, but he did understand the power of freedom and choice. He's a famous atheist. Jean-Paul Sartre did understand the value of free will and choice, and he realized that as you choose, it changes who you are. He was right there. Like most philosophers that are wrong, they had the principle right, but they applied it too hard. It's like hitting the gas all the way. You need a brake and a steering wheel. But he got the part right about how choices form you, and your choices form you. They do. So every choice you make either moves you closer toward wholeness or disunity, integrity or duplicity, honesty or hypocrisy. Every decision you make, every action you take moves you to one or the other. There's principles we're going to get to in a little while that are kind of more, this is really obvious. And what I'm saying to you is very obvious. What I'm proposing to you is that many times we don't actually reflect on that obvious truth. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, for example, the sky is not actually blue. You know that, I know that, because you've seen pictures of space. And you know what air is, because I do that, and air doesn't have a color. Air is see-through, so why is the sky blue? Because as you get through it, it actually makes the black of space look bluish. Right? Water is clear, but the ocean is blue or green. Because the deeper it is, the more the light is bent through. See, those are obvious facts. You learn them as a child, because you see water and you're like, it's clear. But sometimes we don't reflect on obvious truths. You with me so far? A good priest, by the way, does that. If he's saying something brand new, be very careful about that priest. You be nervous. Just make sure it's something you hadn't heard yet. Fine. If he's like, no, I think it's a new way to look at things, stop. Be polite and walk away from that priest. Never speak to him again. By the way, I include bishops and popes in that list. We're going to get to that in about 15 minutes, but yeah. So we need to change things. Stop and walk away from that person. People who change is other professions. Scientists, theologians can. There's plenty of fields to change and develop and grow. Be very careful when a person, that's not part of the job description. Okay, that's like me saying, this is my kid. You should go, huh? Well, Father, kids aren't bad. For that guy it is, right? You see what I mean? Okay, so every choice you make moves you toward one or the other. We don't mean, by the way, by integrity, we don't mean that you can have differing aspects of you. That a thing doesn't have differing aspects. The ancient men figured out and they said, wait a minute, but if you hold up, for example, a bar of gold, obviously it doesn't look the same every side. There's genuine little moments that are different in each thing. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's being disintegrated. So in a person, the way we say that is this: there's different aspects to your personality. In fact, if we're doing it right, there's different aspects to most of the personalities around you. And certainly the more important ones. If you treat everyone the same in a general way of, yes, I'm equal with most people in every way, yes. But if you treat everybody exactly the same, then you're almost not there. Only inanimate objects are identical to everything, and even there, not really if you go around the other side. Everybody got that point? Because that's important to clarify. And I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on that after this. Everybody got that? So there's aspects to your personality, and that's disingenuine or duplicitous. I don't speak to anyone in this room the way I speak to my brother. And that's appropriate, because my brother has a different relationship to me than anyone else in this room. The people that I know in this room, I don't know everybody in this room, but the people that, my relationship with each of them is different based on how much I know them. It'll change, and it might be similar, but it should be, because I know them. I'm a conscious being. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I relate. So that's not a lack of integrity to relate to people differently. A lack of integrity is to be a different person. Okay? You'll see what I mean as we go, but I just wanted to put that out there clearly, so I'm not saying, well, so you have to act everybody say, no, if I spoke to Pope Francis the way I speak to my brother, that would be incredibly disrespectful. Incredibly disrespectful. And if I spoke to my brother the way I would speak to Pope Francis, I would just have a really hard life, because he'd believe it and he'd be like, yeah, that's right. And it'd be about 6 minutes before I popped him in the chest. I can't help it. I love my brother very much, but if I talk to him and he'd say, because he would very like, yeah, that's right. And then I hold back and let him have it. I can't. I just can't do that. So you see, you relate to people in a different way. It's different relationships. Okay. What we do mean, we don't mean different aspects. That's okay. What we do mean is that there is a genuineness. One of the ways you can measure integrity is when you think about yourself, all of yourself, even the private parts, does it bring you peace or not? When you think about your decisions, if they came to light, even the private ones, would they bring you peace or not? A lack of interior peace probably means you need to work on your integrity in that space. I'm not calling you out. Me too. But that does help you, okay? There's a book, I think, or Who Are You When No One Is Looking? There was a book written, Who Are You When No One Is Looking? If you're a radically different person, and it gives you pause, you think, then that's probably a problem you need to work on. What we do mean is that your peace will produce an outward sign of an interior reality. Because you're simple, you're complete, you're whole, I'm using those words interchangeably, then it'll produce a peace. It won't change. There's an awful line in that movie, The Two Popes, that's completely wrong, which is that Pope Francis says, well, God changes. Incorrect. God does not change because he is perfectly integral, he is perfectly simple, he is perfectly pure. God is everlasting. I don't think Pope Francis said that. I know the movie wasn't written that way, and I'm not knocking the movie completely. I'm definitely knocking aspects of the movie, but I'm not knocking the movie completely, but that is wild. I remember thinking, like, you didn't have 3 minutes of a theologian to look at your movie. Like a 3 minutes theologian, you can't say that. Well, maybe the Pope said it. He wouldn't say that. Maybe he did. Maybe he did. But you're putting it in this movie for an agenda then. Because I'm pointing it out as a theologian. You didn't know, fine. But now I'm a theologian pointing out. So now if you leave it in your movie, you have an agenda. Which is now you are not making a movie just to entertain or to inform. You're making a movie to convince. Which is a whole different movie. When I get a phone call in the rectory and someone goes, hello, can I speak to Jean Paul Soler? I receive that phone call with a whole different tone. Then I go, hello, can I speak to Father? Father Jack? Yes, hey, what's going on? Why? Because that person don't know me. They're probably going to sell me something. Do you see what I mean? That's duplicitous. If a director, I don't know if he knew that. He may not have known that. But if he knew that and he put it into the movie, then he's being duplicitous because he's presenting one thing. I'm just telling the story. But he's actually doing something else. There's duplicity. I'm not saying the movie is duplicitous. I am saying there are basic points in that movie that I'm like, wait, come on. Now maybe they didn't have a theologian look through it. It's very probable. Maybe they did. So, but God doesn't change. When we speak of the virtue of integrity, what we're saying is this. It's a person who lives with the virtue of integrity. Now that we've broken down some of the parts, let's bring it together. It's a person who follows strictly a code of morality, or a code of faith, or a code or values. That's what we think of and what we mean when we say a person is a person with integrity. A person who lives according to what their code is. Whatever their code is. Their code might very much be different from mine. I can see a person that lives with integrity. Everybody with me so far? There are monsters in history that have lived with integrity. Rare, because when you examine them, you actually find they're almost always full of baloney. But they live with integrity, right? Adolf Hitler was a quarter Jewish. I call BS. He didn't live with integrity. I picked him because you'd think, okay, that guy really believed it. He said, no, he didn't. He believed it for you, not for him. Do you get what I mean? You had to have blonde hair, blue eyes. He had black hair. He did not have blue eyes. So then you're full of baloney. One of the fastest ways you can identify someone who's worth listening to or not is analyze their integrity very quickly. If their own philosophy of life or theology doesn't apply to them, then you should immediately distance yourself from that person. Everybody should be quiet and be a good neighbor, but I bang the drums and play my music loud because I really like mumble rap. That is a person with duplicity. They don't live with integrity. You should immediately push that person a step back from your heart because they will pull you with them. Do you get what I'm trying to say? We're going to get to the scandals in a minute or two, but that's what makes priests who break their vows so heinous. Because our job, well, at least part of it, but our job is to teach truth and live it. If we're not, then we are much worse hypocrites than other people. Do you get me? When they caught a bunch of, I didn't put this in, but when they caught a bunch of politicians with scandals in the 90s and the 2000s, who slept with women that they weren't married to, sexual scandals, the first thing people did was look on how they voted on whether or not to impeach President Bill Clinton. Now, should that matter? On a certain level, no, because his job is different from my job, and he was the one that was on trial. But we looked for integrity. Go, hey, wait a minute. If you're slick, you looked for those people again in any of the scandals in the last couple of years. Wait, how did you say in 92 or 3 or whatever it was with Clinton? Well, that's duplicity. You can shut up, okay? See, now you're learning. But most of us know these things, we just never apply them consciously. Watch how people behave in different situations. Do they apply the same principle? If they don't, you need to think very hard about your association. Now, if they're not aware of it, and that's very common, bring it to their attention, if you can. If they continue, stop, turn around, and go away. Because that person is rules for thee, but not for me. Rules for thee, but not for me. Right? I want you to do this, but I don't. Right? That's why I'm always amused by the people who get golden statues in Hollywood around now. And they tell us, we need to defend women. Do you mean like you guys were doing? Let me hear more about that. Let's talk a little bit more about it. Well, I don't want to hear you. Dude, you're famous because you read lines that other people wrote. Why would I want to hear what you write? That's mean, Father. No, that's the definition of a job. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's cool. I'll just move on. Anyway, so you'll get it. Somebody will explain it to you on Sunday. Somebody explain it to you, okay? That's why when you hear someone speak, you're going, wait a minute. Okay, so it's someone who strictly follows their code of morality. The more they follow it, the more the person lives with integrity. The less they follow it, the more they live with duplicity or hypocrisy. And a definition of hypocrisy then is not following a code or changing it or presenting different codes. If you see a different code of behavior or code of morality from someone with who you are, that tells you something very quickly about that person. Now, it's hard. That's the rest of the retreat. But I just wanted you to get the idea. Everybody with me so far? Okay. What are the things you should line up? Well, you should line up, for example, your words and your deeds. How you speak and how you live. Not that hard to explain that. Or what is your public life and your private life? How different are they? Or what's your head and what's in your heart? Right? What do you know, and then what do you allow your will to pull you towards? Or what's your mind and your body? If you want that division is maybe, these are all divisions that integrity runs down the middle and holds them together, or they're broken apart. You're disintegrated. You're coming apart. So what's your mind say, and what does your body do? Right? Love is a tricky one. Watch that one. I don't care how people sound. I care very much how they behave. That will tell you love. The problem is most of us are so starved for love, we don't want to wait. We just run into the first arms that are open. And I would say, wait. Because the only thing that you can really tell about integrity, the only absolute way to mark integrity is time. And you're like, but I don't want to wait. Well, then take what you get. But if you get some punches, that's on you. And so there's that balance. Or creed, somebody professes a belief, and their actions. Right? The worst example and the best example for Christianity are Christians. Christians who live well inspire other Christians. Christians who live poorly push away other Christians. Even though, by the way, you should never judge anything by somebody who doesn't follow the rules. You should judge it by the best. But we do, because we look for genuineness. That's another word for integrity. Being and behavior, what you are and how you behave. If you find that someone is something that they don't act like in a dangerous way or in a bad way, that should give you pause. If you're that person, that should give you pause, right? If I behave in such a way that shocked you to find out I was a priest, in a moral way, that's a problem. Now, I do that all the time. I deliberately do that. I do it very deliberately. But I try to get people, why? Because I want to get past their assumption of what a priest behaves like, just so I can get past their defenses. But if I'm doing something immoral, you got to stop. Some of you are in ministries. That matters. That matters a lot, by the way. Okay, these are all divisions that integrity runs right down the middle. Are these two things connected or not? Okay. Honesty is what? Just so we're clear about honesty. Honesty is appropriately speaking the truth as we know it. Did I have to define honesty? Well, yeah, because there are definitions that are different. Right? Kierkegaard famously said honesty is saying the truth no matter what. St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Augustine, there's different definitions. The definition of the church and the definition we use is appropriately speaking the truth as you know it. One, because if you didn't say the truth and you didn't know it, then it doesn't count as being dishonest. You spoke it as you understood it. Right? There was si la mentira, what is it? What's the phrase in Spanish? Si hay mentira, no es la mía, or something like that. When you repeat a story that you heard, you're like, yo man, this happened, that's not true. I don't know, if it's a lie, it's not my lie. I'm just telling you what they told me to tell you. Right? For those who don't speak Spanish, the literal translation of what I just said is, if there is a lie, it's not from my mouth. Something like that. That's the idea. So as you know it, and then appropriately goes there. Why? Because the famous example, I'm sure you've heard, is if the Nazis knock on your door and say, do you have any Jews upstairs? And you have Anne Frank in the cupboard, you can say no. Wait, for real? Yeah. Yeah, being a good person doesn't mean being a sucker. Just so we're clear, that's a free one for me to use. It's not even part of the retreat. Let me just throw that out there for you. Okay? Being a good person doesn't mean you're a sucker. Do you have any Jews I can kill? That's what they really mean. And so your answer to them is, no, I don't have any Jews you can kill. And that's the correct Catholic moral answer. Sometimes people get that one wrong because they think, well, you should say the truth no matter what. And I go, Kierkegaard, who's not Catholic, would love you. But we would be like, oh, bro, who was the Pope? Paul? I forget the name of the Pope during Pius XII. He made like hundreds and thousands of visas as Catholic citizens of Italy for Jewish people so they could escape. They would inspect the trains and they'd be like, yeah, oh wait, there's something here, let's go for dinner. And he would have the priest go take the Nazi guards to dinner. And then they just literally write out visas. Just fill it in, here, just stamp it, fill in your name, and they show up and be like, there's no Jews on the train. Nope, not a Jew here. Oh, that's wrong. No, that person didn't deserve the truth. Why am I saying this is when I say about integrity? Because you should not. Integrity means to share the intimacy of your heart. That is not what it is to live with integrity. You get what I'm trying to say? Because I can tell you right now, at least some people are going to have the devil in your ear go, because then you have to say everything. Because he loves either ors. Because that way he can force you to pick, well then it can't be that. It just means you don't have do you have a right to this knowledge or not? That also helps you, by the way, with asking if you're speaking with integrity. The example I give the young people in the school I'm a chaplain for is I tell them, listen, if your name is Bobby, right, just to make it a boy. If you're Bobby and you went to Steve's house and then you went to Maria's house and hung out there for a bunch of hours, just you and Maria in her room, and then your mom asked you where you went and you say Bobby's house or Steve's house, then you lied because your mother is deserving of the full truth, which is to say you went somewhere she didn't want you to go. Well, I said part of the truth, that's being disingenuous. That's being duplicitous. That's being hypocritical. Everybody with me? Or dishonest? So, but do they deserve that truth? You got to be careful because it is to use your brain. You are never asked in your faith to walk without your brain. If that was real, then why would we say God gave you one? And if you believe in a God, then you believe he gave you everything. Why would he give you one then? That can't be right. Why would he make things that you have to struggle with to understand? That can't be right. Because then that would make God imperfect, which means he's not God. So what? So if you believe there's a God, then there's certain things that go along with it. One of them is that he wouldn't put you to do something and give you this, right? In other words, God won't ask you to do something you can't do. God's not going to say to anybody in this room, jump out that window and flap your arms. Listen, this whole church is based on that. Don't get me started. Get in the car, take a few hours, we can get there. Hold this, it won't bite you, and if it does, you'll be fine. Stop it. Don't hold it. Father, don't you have faith? Yes, I also have reason. They go together. There's a whole encyclical called Faith and Reason. and you know, JP2, Pope St. John Paul the Great, JP2, St. John Paul the Great wrote that encyclical, and what does he say? Faith and reason are the two wings of the dove of the Holy Spirit. So he doesn't come only through one, but he doesn't come only through the other. Both are required. You get me? And listen, if you're going to hang out with me this weekend, we're going to hang out with reason. You have to. This is important, and you need to use it. I'm pointing at my brain for those of you who can't see me. Sorry. I realize people can't see me. You need your reason. So if your reason tells you to limit what you're saying to someone or to adjust your behavior for a certain situation, that's okay if it's an honest reason and you're not trying to use it for your own personal benefit, but for the truth. You get me? Okay. As you develop your own integrity or genuineness, what you will start is your genuineness, your integrity. What will develop is another thing that comes from integrity, which is trustworthiness. You will find you are found trustworthy by people. People tend to be able to speak to you honestly or open up to you. People tend to say stuff to you maybe you don't want to hear. If they do, too bad. There you go. That's on you. Just deal with it. But that's where that comes from. It's a fruit of that. And if people feel like you are not a person of integrity, then they'll start being less trusting of you. They start pulling away from you. And they have good reason, because they're using their reason. They're saying, you shouldn't. But if you want to develop trustworthiness, you have to show integrity. Over time, it will develop in others. Now, it takes time. Why? Because it's in others' hearts, right? They have to find you trustworthy, so it takes time. But they can move past that. The other way the other word that I don't know if I've used enough, I use genuine, but I don't know if I use this word, authenticity or authentic. It's one of the, I think it's the only, if I remember correctly, you have to look up the sociology studies, that was years ago. They studied cultures and they found different virtues were valuable in different cultures, these sociologists. So some valued strength, some valued no emotion, some valued very emotional, right? Go to different funerals. You ever seen that? I went to a funeral of a brother priest, and everybody there was just like, good, good, good. How are you? Good, good, good. How was things? Good, good, good. Oh, okay. And then I went to the funeral of a parishioner, and people were screaming and crying and rending their clothing. They were from different cultures, let me tell you. Different cultures value different things, okay? One of the, I think it was the only one, but that you have to look it up somewhere. But genuineness or authenticity was a universal. Every culture that they measured, they found that being genuine was something every culture values. Makes sense. We evolved for that. If someone's not authentic, then you die in the woods when the bears come. Right? Think back caveman times. Right? We're trying to survive in nature. We're cavemen. You need to make sure that when, Ugg says he's going to do something, Ugg does it. If Ugg doesn't, then a wolf will come and eat you. You get what I'm trying to say? Brock will say, and then, and somebody dies. So you have to learn the people who are authentic. So it naturally kind of follows generation after generation. We look for that. We feel instinctively more safe, just like light. We feel more instinctively safe near light than near darkness. Okay? Or why snakes trigger people pretty much universally. You may not have a phobia of them, but they trigger our brain, different parts of our brain immediately. Just because the people who didn't pay attention got eaten. We're not their kids. They died. So the ones who paid attention to long, skinny things that wiggle, they lived. So we paid attention, so they lived, so we're their kids. So we just natural selection got rid of those people. That's why we notice those things. Authenticity matters. Okay, to look at someone, another word that's worth looking at is incorruptible. Ooh, it's a good word. You want to put that in a recommendation letter? Oof. This meat is like that when you get the meat, when you bite the bone and the meat just comes right off. He is an incorruptible character. Goof! You might as well, you got him the job. You got him the job. You got him the job. Incorruptible means cannot be corrupted. Comes from the phrases of spoiling or decaying. From the Latin word corrumpire, to ruin, like when milk spoiled. Incorruptible meant something remained protected or non-spoiled or protected or not destroyed. Corruptible means those words. It's someone who's not subject to decay or dissolution or disintegration. A person who won't fall. The temptation will be there. You can't control temptation. Some of you might have, maybe that's your retreat right there. Just take that line. You can't control temptation. Like you can limit it, conscious temptation, absolutely. But it's going to come to you. Some of you wonder, like, I'd be a better person if I just was a monk. You won't. I know monks. They say to me, Father, if I was just in the world and not lost in my thoughts, I could be able to be distracted from all these bad thoughts. And I go, no, everybody's a jerk. You're cool. Brother, you're good. No, brother, you're good. I'm in the world. Everybody says the opposite. Mm-mm. What you can do is limit it, right? If you know about temptation, don't flirt with problems. And then you'll limit, but you can't control it completely. It will always come. What you can control is what you do about it. That you can do. Your relationships will change because people will learn that they're able to trust, to confide in you, to ask your counsel, to speak openly with you. The last kind of the last aspect of integrity that develops in you or comes apart in you is your public and private life division. If your public life and your private life are wildly different, it will come up to you eventually. Because what God sees will eventually be seen by everybody. Maybe not now, but eventually. You know, the Catholic Church has a wisdom. We don't canonize people till they're dead. That's not bad. Because people go, no, this person's a wonderful person. I don't know. Father, I think he's a holy person. Yeah, but well, what if when he's dead and in the ground for a while, then he's done doing stuff, then we can look up. Because you find out stuff about people all the time. There's a wisdom to that from experience. Tomorrow, the reading that we're going to have at Mass is about King Saul. He's the first king of Israel. Here's another free one, not from the retreat. First king of Israel, Saul. Second king of Israel, David. Third king of Israel, Solomon. How do you remember them? The syllables. Saul, 1 syllable. David, 2 syllables. Solomon, 3 syllables. What about the fourth? Doesn't matter. The kingdom split after that. So it's an easy cheat because you just got another first 3. Then you don't have to ever learn. Well, a bunch of other guys. Doesn't matter. Nobody was in charge of all of them. And you technically true. There's never been another one until the son of David, Jesus. Okay, that's why we call him the son of David, right? It's a big deal. Okay, so there is, the reading is tomorrow of King Saul, and King Saul gets picked tomorrow. Monday we won't be together, but Monday at Mass, King Saul loses his kingship because he doesn't do what God told him. And the prophet says, why didn't you do what we told you to do? Well, I didn't think it was a good idea because it was like killing and wasting food. And the prophet looks at him and goes, you don't decide that. God does. Now you're not going to be king anymore. He just looks at him and goes, what? Because you represent me. This is God speaking. So if you're bad, then people think I'm bad. So you're out. So he gets it tomorrow, right? Saturday. Tuesday, he loses it. Wednesday, we hear the reading of picking King David. And the prophet goes and he sees David's oldest brother. He goes, this is the guy, right? He's good looking, he's tall, he's strong. And what does God say to the prophet in his heart? He goes, God sees not as man sees. God sees the heart. So that's where your public and private life matter. Now, again, there are appropriate levels of discretion. So again, I'm not saying what you do in private is all what you do in public. That would make you an animal, right? If I got to take never mind, if I must use the restroom. See, I'm trying, okay? I'm trying, okay? Some of you are seeing the best version of me, okay? I'm trying. So, if I have to use the restroom, then I do that in private. I don't do that in public, okay? So there are levels of discretion, okay? There are intimacy levels, right? There are names you use for people and nicknames you use for people that you don't use for others. By the way, pro tip, if you ever want to be like socially always acceptable, don't ever cross that line. People will always like you more. Don't ever do that. If I hear like, her husband calls her my sweet little num-nums, I'm not going to be like, hey num-nums, because she is going to go, ew, get away from me. Unless you say it once as a joke, otherwise why? Because it's disingenuine. Why? It comes across as a joke because they didn't give you that implicit or explicit permission to do that. Pro tip, it's about integrity there. Anyway, so there's levels of intimacy and levels of discretion. So obviously your private life is not exactly like your public life, but the principles are still the same. And you live by the same, then you'll be fine. Okay? It's like picturing yourself as a child, right? Think of a famous picture of you as a little kid. I don't care, pick one in your head. Got it? Got it? I just thought of one. Okay. I look good. I was prettier back then. I was prettier back then. Things have gone terribly wrong in my life. Anyway, so, terribly, horribly wrong in my life. So, you're still you. If you look at a picture of a baby, of the person, of them as a child, you can see aspects of them. Are they the exact same person? No, because you develop over time. So intimacy, as people get to know you more intimately, they should see that you're about the same person over time. If they find something radically different, they're going to be upset. And this is what the public and private life split comes. That's what we call public scandals. I'm going to speak to you about the ones that are most clear to me. The church. We found out that privately, a lot of these priests and bishops were monsters of the worst sort of human being, of the kind of thing that animals don't do. Abusing of a child is the thing that animals don't do. And so the giant difference between the public and the private is what destroyed the church. Rocked it. I was in Italy, near the Leaning Tower of Pisa. This lady just walks up to us and says, you know, I was in a church where a priest abused kids. He didn't abuse me, but that really messed my church up. I don't go to church anymore. I remember thinking two thoughts. One, you still have to answer to God, because if my brother's a jerk and you're not my friend anymore, I'm going to go to you, why are you not my friend? Your brother's a jerk, okay, but... And two, you're absolutely right, though, on another level, lady, I understand. It must have hurt you and scarred you horribly. I was literally in a foreign country. She walked out, I guess she heard us speak in English, started talking to me, and just opened up just the most intimate detail. And all I'm thinking is, we have to go because we're going to Florence. That's honestly, I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just like, I have to leave. We have a time limit. I have a curfew. I have to bring people home. So, yeah, I was trying to get away while being respectful of her pain. No, she wasn't in pain because it didn't happen to her and she didn't know about it till later. So I was like, well, I mean, then, I feel like you just left the church because you wanted to. And then you found out and justified yourself, which is what human beings are incredibly good at doing. We are incredibly good at doing that. But anyway, there were people hurt. To this day, it's been 20 years since the last big wave of scandals hit. 20 years. It was in 2000, 2001. I know. I was in the seminary. The New York Post called the seminary an incubator for pedophile priests. I was in the seminary, as they called it, an incubator for pedophile priests. My awesome brother that I mentioned to you made sure to bring me that newspaper. He's like, yo, man, come here. I was like, dude, I'm going to stab you in the eyeball. All right, I will say I have dark humor. I was like, it's a little bit funny. But still, no, man, I'm in that thing. I'm not one of those, Why was the scandal hit so bad? Aside from the heinousness of the crime, which in and of itself is, but the fact that it was from the people who it was from, people who were supposed to be live with the most integrity. Why did we get angry at bishops? Because we found out that some of them knew about it and transferred priests. And if a priest is bad, fine, but a bishop shouldn't be. I mean, for the love of St. Joseph, the least you should be able to do is the guy with the big hat should be the guy with the big morality, right? Like, isn't that how that works? The fancier the clothes, the more moral the guy? At least in principle, but they weren't. Lack of integrity will destroy someone. The people you hurt, but also yourself. You don't get away free. You go to jail. Pope Benedict retired 400 bishops in 8 years. Understand, he averaged one bishop a week that he was retiring. They weren't old. Because they were catching them. He was like, you're out, you're out, you're out, you're out. Mind you, Rome is closed for a month. Okay, the offices are closed to give the people who work there a break. So the Pope has to go to Castel Gandolfo, which is somewhere else in Italy, right? So he would just stack them up. So he'd come back from vacation. Okay, we're back good. You're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. He was he beheaded something like a third of the bishops. They're just gone. Handed a whole bunch of them over to the cops. He's like, take them. Well, this is disgusting, evil. What are you doing? Remember, his job before he was Pope was to look up these cases. So once he became Pope, he just dealt with them. He was firing dudes his first week as Pope. He was like, you're filthy, you're filthy, you're filthy, you're filthy, you're filthy. We still have echoes of the problem now, today. What was it, last week, Pope Francis had to make a comment on it? That's crazy. That's how bad integrity, if you don't have it, is. That's how dangerous it is. Now, I picked the church as the example because it's the one I live with. I know. But everybody's got their own. I don't know what example would work for you. That's, you know your own heart. But whatever lack of integrity that you've seen, and you've seen it, whether it's small, like the first... I remember that. My mother spoke very fancy English when she was on the phone with somebody important. I could tell, because we both spoke Spanish in the home. But she was really fancy, and I was like, "Oh, mommy's talking to school." I was like, you lean in a little bit, you're like... And she said something about me not going to school because I was sick, and I was like, I'm not sick. I'm home because she said we have to go here. Mommy's lying. It was a big deal. parents repeat that. They get older and they go, no, because, and I'm like, you know he's going to catch you. Oh, he's going to catch you. Yeah, and then he's going to, don't you remember, bro? But then you have parents who go, I'm going to tell my child everything. That's ridiculous. They're a child. They're not competent to absorb everything. Use levels of discretion for them. But don't let them use integrity. Live with integrity and they'll get it. There's that middle road. So I use the one that, again, I know best because that's the one I lived. But everybody has to figure out their own. Archbishop Vigano was the nuncio. That was the diplomat to the United States from Rome. He retired, then disappeared deliberately, then from unknown location began to release more information. And they said, why? He goes, because I want to live. I'm an old man. I'm going to die soon, but I want to live my last days. Do you realize how heinous that is for him to say that? Do you get what he's implying, just so we're clear? And we don't know where he is right now. And he's still releasing information. He's like, and this, and he's not saying like that guy did something. He's like, that guy did something on June 14th, X day. So what did the press do? Let's go to those guys. Did you? And they're like, yep. But he disappeared. We don't know where he was. He will do interviews only through an unlisted internet number, whatever they call it, the VPN, using VPN to hide his ID, his computer ID, to make sure. And then because he's got tech friends, he's like, look, I'm good with tech, but some of these people are amazing. And so they help me. Because I retired. I have nothing to gain. I'm retired. I can't be higher. I was one of the highest levels of the church. I'm doing this because I have to face God. And I realize that these things are not going to come out before so I need them to come out. Because I have to face God. And I knew about them, and I'm not technically, he wasn't in charge of any of the cases, but he was like, I knew, so I thought somebody would say it, but he's doing it right now. He releases letters every couple months. And what does he speak about? Where did the break come? He says it. He tells you. I was in the seminary. I was a young man. I was studying in Europe, in Italy. And I heard the professors of the seminary. Now, remember we've talked about integrity. Tell the seminarians it's okay if you have sex with a man, or it's okay if you have a boyfriend but not a girlfriend. That's a sin because we're going to take a vow of celibacy. Or somewhere like, it's okay if you have a girlfriend. Don't worry. Just don't bring. These are men studying to be priests. What are you doing? You're forming that crack, that split in them. You're encouraging duplicity, which will only get worse. It never gets better. And it grew. Pope Benedict, before the meeting of the bishops last February, put out notes. You can look them up. He published his notes. He said, I have some notes just to maybe help people. I know I'm a retired pope, so I have no decision or anything, and I did what I could, but just to see if I can help, I have some thoughts. And he wrote about his time in the seminary, all the way in Germany. The sexual revolution happened, and it took about 10 years, but it did hit the church eventually. And it infiltrated. Instead of standing still, integrity, saying we are whole, we are not changing, we are not corruptible, it got inside. And so we started including things, and we weren't as careful to make sure, well, Father, it's mean to tell someone to leave. Too bad. You live with integrity. Everybody with me so far? Again, why am I banging on the church drum? Because it's a drum. I don't say this in a moment because there's moments of teachable moments and not teachable moments. If you don't know what that is, ask somebody on Sunday. But a not teachable moment, if someone's like, I'm real bothered by the scandal of the church, and I want to look and go, hey, dum-dum, do you not see what I am? You're bothered by them? Dude. I cannot even have an altar server be the sacristan for the church without me being somebody else there, because I'm terrified. Because people genuinely believe that everybody in a cassock is a kid toucher. You're bothered by it? Stop it. Integrity. It has effects if you live it. It has damage if you don't. And they always get found out. They may not get found out in this life. They will get found out in the next. Our Lord said it very clearly. Things said in secret will be said in public. These splits in these priests developed into these splits in these personalities, developed into splits in the church as a whole, which divides the church until this day. Right? Cardinal Sarah, who is talk about integrity, definition of integrity. His book's going to be up here when he dies. They're going to put a book about that guy easily. Right? This African cardinal got up there and wrote a book. He writes anything he wants. I love it. He's like older. He's like, I don't care. I say what I want. Oh, he's awesome. He's like, look him up on YouTube. His talks are hilarious. Because when you get to that age where full steam ahead, you don't care anymore, he's there. And he was like that young, because he was like, I grew up in a country where they didn't want me to be a Christian. And where my people are being killed now by Islamic terrorists. You think I care? What are you going to do? Are you going to write a bad letter about me? So he just goes in. He just published a book with Pope Benedict, retired Pope Benedict, as a co-author. And it's about chastity and celibacy in the church. Just published it right now, like literally this week. That's how bad it is, that you have to have these bishops standing forward and saying, hey, no, we got to stop. And then for the sake of limiting the scandal of a retired pope writing a letter, Pope Benedict removed his name from the book. So it says like, by Archbishop Cardinal Sarah and others. And I was like, others? That seems duplicitous. It seems duplicitous. And others? That guy ain't an other. I don't care who you are. You ain't an other. Even if you're not Catholic, you don't think of a pope as an other. Okay? You notice. But he was like, look, because Pope Benedict said, look, I'm not doing this to start a fight. I'm doing this so we start healing. So just so that nobody thinks that I'm trying to start a fight, I'll take my name. That's... Who was to write this? That's insane. Rules for priesthood. Anybody? Don't. Okay, cool. We need books for this? Now? It's been 2,000 years. I think we shouldn't do that. Yeah, okay, cool. It's been the rule, unbroken. Right? And so for us to say, like, well, we still have to teach it, that means that there's a split that we have to heal. And we have to start living with integrity. Okay, St. Bruno, his feast is on October 6th. St. Bruno is the founder of the Carthusians. There are no other saints of the Carthusians. Why are there no other saints of the Carthusians? Because they don't want canonized saints, even though they're totally all saints. There's a bunch of martyrs from England. You got to get some reflections from the martyrs of England. There's a couple of martyrs from the Carthusians. They're canonized in generic thing, but they're not referred to as saints because they were like, we don't want any titles. So they only canonized the first guy because they were like, we got to give somebody. You guys are awesome. These are monks live in the most strictest discipline of the church. He has the motto of the Carthusians is the world turns, but the cross stands still. The world turns, but the cross stands still. It helps you, gives you a point, a focal point, and then you can grow yourself from there. James Patterson, you guys know that author? He writes a bunch of books. They make movies about his books all the time with Lincoln Grimes. It's awesome, fun books. It's not like deep or anything. It's like a murder mystery criminal cop book, you know? Fun, though. Amazing. He's like a detective. He figures out stuff. Anyway, James Patterson wrote nonfiction. In 1991, I want you to know that this is in 1991 because I'm going to break your brain. Is everybody ready? Because you're going to want to say this from like the 60s and the 70s? James Patterson got together with some other authors and he produced a completely anonymous survey. Now that's very difficult to do because people will, any kind of hint of who they are, they won't say the truth. So he made sure it was completely anonymous. He was like, you'd lay it to this person, you'd lay it to this person. So that way no one knows anything, right? And he found a bunch of things. Like one, certain institutions are not important anymore, like marriage. 10 Commandments, most of us don't even agree on that. I think it's like 40% of people believe in like 5 of them. This is Americans. The Sabbath, there's like nobody. Nobody believes in the Sabbath, like keeping any Sabbath, right? He was any kind of American, any kind. So what? Now some of you are thinking, okay, they don't, I do. But we're still bothered by people who don't. So he proposes at the end of the book, in this anonymous survey, it's called, by the way, the name of the book is called The Day America Told the Truth. He proposed new commandments. He goes, nobody believes, we don't all believe in the new commandments, so let's come up with some different ones. I got 5 here. Ready? Now he went just by the surveys of what majority of Americans believe. They're going to go from bottom to sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry. Commandment number 1. I don't see the point in observing the Sabbath. 77% of Americans agree with that statement. I don't see the point of observing the Sabbath. Okay. We're warming up. Number 2. I will steal from those who won't really miss it. 74% of Americans agree with that. Now, right now, I'm hitting some of you right where it hurts. I mean to. Father, people want to know. No, nobody can know. I do have powers, but not like that. Okay. Wait till tomorrow. The weather comes. You see my powers. Anyway, so, number 3. I will lie when it suits me, so long as it doesn't really cause any damage. 64%. We're still over 50. He was like, I'm going over 50. What most Americans do, we got new commandments. Hold on. I will cheat on my spouse. After all, given the chance, he would do the same to me. 53%. 53%. No, Father, okay, cool. But understand that most Americans feel this way. That was a long time ago, 91, stop it. I know, some of you are thinking, okay, boomer. I'm not a boomer, by the way. And just some people misuse that. I'm a Gen Xer, okay? There's a difference. We're really sarcastic and biting humor, Okay, but we don't think the oldies are better. We think nothing is good. We're very depressive. Whatever. We gave you grunge. Yeah. But anyway, so hey, we gave you NWA too, so I'm saying, all right? Okay. So anyway, so number 5, I will procrastinate at work and do absolutely nothing about one full day in every 56%. If you add up the times you don't work, where you just stare at the desk importantly as if you're doing something, so no one knows you do, or you walk quickly with papers, and that way nobody bothers you. When you go for a walk and your lunch is a little bit longer because you got to pick up those things and it's really important. Okay. This is not a country. Our culture, in other words, won't help you. Now, I'm not saying our culture is particularly worse, it's just this is what it is. Listen, I've been doing deep dives in the medieval world and the Renaissance world for the last couple of years. Lots of dirt over there too, okay? I'm just saying this is our culture right now. And so I just wanted to finish with that so that you understand the difference between integrity and duplicity, but also the effects of it. You don't live with integrity. By the way, how many people do we hold up in public to those standards? Think of one famous person in public, in a public office or in a public servant. Because not famous because they're like, doing something else. Like if they're an actor, I mean, they're just, what? They're famous for the movies. When was the last time you heard somebody complain and all they were doing was following those commandments? I can read your minds. I know the name you're thinking of. It's offensive, it's not wrong. Look at the commandments. Are we just in public when we're on Twitter? I am a great person and this is wrong. I smell something funny. I can't say what I smell because I'm trying to be a better man. But, okay, we're finishing with integrity with that, and I have a weird corollary to do this, part to this talk now. And the reason I want to do this now, and it's not part of integrity, it's a separate, complete topic, but I think it's important to cover at the beginning of the retreat because it might help some or all of you. And it's to very briefly look at meditation. And the reason I say that is because I hope we have done everything in my not inconsiderable power to try to open up your life so that you can meditate a bit this weekend. But you may not know what you're doing or how to do it. Or probably, actually, you might be doing it and not know you're doing it. Most people do. It is not, okay? It is not breathing. That helps, but it's not breathing. It's not looking at a candle, although that can help. Or sitting still, although that can help. If you want to sit cross-legged, awesome. That's not meditation, though. But that helps some people. It's not turning off your brain. That's not possible. What it is there are 2 layers to your thinking. One of them has about, do you know how many average thoughts we have a day? 50,000. 50,000 separate thoughts a day, give or take. And so one of the phrases that they use in some practice of meditation, they call it the monkey mind. And think of a little monkey, because a monkey stands still. And they're running around, they're throwing stuff and pooping stuff and throwing stuff, They're doing all kinds of things. And they're swinging from each one of those branches, 50,000 of them. What meditation is some of you, what you're doing is giving it something to do. You ever had a little kid that's crazy? And they're bouncing on the wall, and you go, look, come here. Look at that. And for a second, if you're really good at presentation, you get them. And you better be amazing, right? You have about 5 seconds. If you're not, they're going, and they're just going on, right? That's part of our brain always. By the way, that's an important part of your brain. It's necessary. Because if you were always self-critical or always deep thinking, it burns too much energy. First of all, it literally burns more energy, 1. And 2, you would become depressive. Anxiety or depression come from that when it's not acting up. So it's meant to act up. But when you learn how to control it, it can still act up, but it's in a direction. Now you're moving somewhere. It's the difference between a light bulb and a laser. Right? A light bulb sends light everywhere. A laser is just taking the same amount of light and focusing it. One does something different than the other. So what we do in meditation, the different practices you'll see, you're going to get some tonight, and in the next day or 2, and you've probably looked up some. What they're designed to do is give you something, your monkey mind, give it something to do. That's where the breathing comes. Listen to your breathing. Why? Because then it's focusing on that. Nope, it's just focusing on something. Okay? Or maybe you look at a sacred image or a candle. Because it gives you stuff to look at enough so that your mind, it can't be too simple, because then your mind will get bored. but it can't be too complicated so it doesn't have other thoughts. So it gives you something to look at. That's why churches are filled with religious art. It's literally why we build them that way. Because that way, everywhere your brain goes, it has something to look at. Oh, look, there's all kinds of different kinds of leaves. I wonder what they are. And then you start looking and learning. It focuses, it catches your attention, it flies around, catches it, and holds it just for a second. And then you can direct it to do something. Okay? Now, what's the difference between methods is this. Any method that works is fine. What's the difference between Catholic and non-Catholic meditation, like Buddhist meditation? What's the difference? They do the same purpose, which is to still the mind, but they want to still it for different reasons. Different kinds of, not just Buddha, but different kinds of meditation. Some of them are for nothingness. We want you to look for God. Some of them want to eliminate emotion, right? Emotion is the cause of suffering, is a very well-known mantra. We want you to see your emotions as a gift, but when you should use them or not use them. Some will say separate your desires from this world. Desire is the problem. We want you to have the desires and intensify them, but to aim them at the right things. Some want you to have, separation from this world completely. We want you to be grateful for what you have in this world. So there's a difference. It's the purpose you use it for. You get what I'm trying to say? Mindfulness is very hot right now, which is fine if it's used properly. But we don't want you to empty yourself. That is useless. Again, what did I start with? This reason you have was given to you for a reason. You want to use it for a purpose. We're trying to guide it, okay? The other thing that might help with meditation is you don't have to sit still at all. Go for a walk, okay? 2014, Stanford University had a study where they give people tests where they had to figure things out in a certain amount of problems and a certain amount of creative problems, different uses for different things. And they found that if the people they gave a 50-minute walking break were twice as creative for something like a few hours, just by walking for 50 minutes. It lasts for a few hours. So if you go for a walk tomorrow, maybe you have some free time, you go for a walk, you can get replenished. Because what are you doing when you walk in nature? You're giving it lots to look at, but you're choosing what it's looking at. Instead of sitting still where things come in and you just start thinking about that or that or that or that girl over there or I'm uncomfortable or I'm itchy. It gives it things to think. Some of you are doing that right now, I can tell. Body language and facial expression. So I can catch it. So try, I wanted to cover that just so you have an idea when we talk about meditation where you're looking at. Now, tomorrow morning, somebody have a copy of the schedule? Oh, never mind, I got it. Morning prayer is really early. Yeah, it is. What do you want me to say? Breakfast is at 8. Sunrise is what, 7:20? 7:25? 7:15. Still got it. Anyway, no, because we moved the retreat later in the year, so that means sunrise is a little bit earlier. Sorry, I missed the timing wrong. Why do I mention sunrise? You have to watch sunrise? No, you don't have to do anything. I went over that in the very beginning. I'm saying it because it will give your monkey mind something to do that happens every day, but you often don't pay attention to it. Some people come to this retreat once a year, and that's the only time they look at the sunrise, maybe? It happened 364 other times. I'm just saying, you don't have to, but they're like, oh yeah, that thing. Yeah, every day for your whole life has happened. The day it doesn't happen, you don't have to worry because you're done too. Okay, so don't worry. The day it doesn't happen, don't worry. Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, grant us to know your will and the strength to get it done. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Now, we have night prayer scheduled, but it is